Welcome to Happy Naked, the podcast. So this is Dee, the founder of Dee Health and Fitness and the author of the book Happy Naked. I am a personal trainer. I'm the author of the book. I'm also energy healer. I have a computer degree as well. And my mission with this podcast, it is to share the naked truth through taboo conversations and raw stories that will allow you to elevate your sex life, relationships, intimacy, health, fitness, and overall well-being. So please don't forget to follow me on Instagram and Facebook, and you can find also the links in the description. And today I have an amazing guest with me today. Her name is Crystal, and she's very close to my heart. We have done work together, and we founded the High Heels Club to help women to bring their sexuality. And it was fun times that we had while we were running the group, that's for sure. And let me share a little bit more about Crystal. Crystal Fresh, that's her celebrity name. And her official name is Crystal Rhodes. And she's a successful metaphysics teacher, healer, and a spiritual coach. Has helped thousands of people in 20 countries transform their pain and suffering into passion and inspiration, accelerating them to new heights in their careers, relationships, and mental health. Her life purpose is to assist people in finding their life purpose and removing their blockages that are in the way of them standing in their true power, as well as being a teacher for the Modern Mystery School. She's also a famous international DJ and utilizes many mediums to heal her clients, including metaphysics workshops, seminars, and she also uses music and dancing. She does one-on-one healing, coaching, and she has a lot of skills and gifts, that's for sure. Crystal's multifaceted techniques are guaranteed to transition any fear and anxiety that has arisen in you from this pandemic into motivation and inspiration. She believes that there is always room for people to learn, become empowered, and evolve their way of living. Her focus is on supporting her clients to achieve their life goals with ease and confidence. Her personality, knowledge, and experience are brilliant, and she wants nothing more than help you thrive and live your best life possible. You can see why she's my guest today. So today we will be talking about a very interesting topic, okay? And sometimes I find that there might be things that will come out in this conversation that maybe you're listening and you're like, oh, wow, I never thought of this. Crystal is a very gifted individual. And aside from the knowledge that she has, I have healing experience with her. And I can tell you, there's few people I have experienced healing from that I can tell that they're very powerful. And Crystal is one of the most powerful healers I personally know. And today, we're going to talk about different things, right? We're going to talk about healthy expression of sexuality for women, right? How influenced by trauma and experiences, it has shifted your spiritual path, shifted or probably put you on the way of your spiritual path, right? We never know, everybody goes through different ways of healing, right? And how do you express yourself? Judgment, right? When you have been in a traumatic experience where another person has been the predator, how do you feel safe? Are you approaching life in a safe way? And there's so many things, as we talked earlier about, relationships, sex, and, different kind of relationship. That's all the stuff that we're gonna talk about today. So this is awesome. And thank you, Crystal, for saying yes to this.
Thank you so much for having me on your podcast. Any of the work that we do together, I really love, Dee. So I was really excited when you asked me to join you today.
This is awesome. And thank you very much. So give us a little bit, a highlight of, you're very skilled in what you do, including DJing. And And, but how have you, what got you to this? Because you're quite young for all the experience that you have in life. So, but how do you get where you are today?
Well, my journey was very interesting. I had a lot of abuse and a lot of trauma as a child and like moved all over. I went to 15 different schools by the time I graduated grade 12, you know, living with different people, back and forth between parents, grandparents, and foster care for a while. I have a younger brother and a younger sister too. So we were all kind of like sometimes together and sometimes apart. And, you know, just I knew something inside of me ever since I was young. I knew there was something inside of me that was going to be able to help people become empowered in their lives. I knew I had some kind of a great purpose, even though, you know, as a little child, you don't really understand what that means, but I knew that I was destined to do something great. So that was kind of the thing that kept me going throughout all the trauma that I went through and all of the issues. And you know, I began to recognize that that's tools that are going to be in my tool belt for helping others as I was growing older. One of my first memories as a child was when I was about 2.5 years old, I guess, and I was sitting on the floor playing with my angels, and they flew down the stairs, and I tried to fly down the stairs and fell down the stairs. And I remember that being the first moment of me realizing that I was different from them. So I could always see things, you know, I could always see fairies and ghosts and angels and all kinds of things, spirits, and I wanted to be able to understand how they were interacting in the other dimensions and on the other sides of the veil in order to either help us or hinder us, because I could feel the energy. I was always very sensitive to that. Mm-hmm. So that was a really big part of me being able to heal from my trauma. And it's really interesting, the topic that we're talking about today, because I went through a lot of sexual abuse as a child too. And that really hindered my ability to feel safe being a woman. Like even like as a child being a female. So I really tended to go more towards my divine masculine energy or be more in my male energy, you know, for survival purposes, for protection purposes, all that type of thing. So it's really only been in the last couple of years that I've really been discovering my divine female energy and divine feminine energy and what that looks like, and, you know, what's healthy ways to express that. And yeah, so that's really what's led me here today. Is, you know, that all those things that I went through, and I've been training for metaphysics and hermetics for 21 years, many different schools of thought. And it's really cool to see all the different perspectives of how different schools of thought look at, you know, the traumas that you've gone through and how that leads you to where you're going, and, you know, having to do with soul contracts or what your soul came here to do. And I really believe that, you know, all the things that happened to me were not in vain. It was like a training system to bring me here now so that we could have conversations like this and be able to help, you know, women step into their divine feminine and be able to feel safe in their skin. And, you know, there's so many things going on in our culture and in society and around the world that have really skewed perceptions of what divine feminine, divine masculine is, and how to express that and what it looks like. And it's really an individual experience. So I can share, you know, as we go through the call today, I can share what my experience has been, but it's always going to be unique to each listener, to each person. So I hope that, you know, you guys as the viewers and the listeners will become inspired by some of the things that Dee and I talk about today, and just kind of question that for yourself, and, you know, maybe reflect on what has happened to you in your past and led you to where you are now.
Yeah. I personally believe that when we're looking at trauma or childhood experiences, everybody, you know, we all become adults, but we face that childhood experience in different ways, and how we basically fix the issue, or how we resolve it, or how we forgive, because I think forgiveness is one of the toughest, I think, thing to do sometimes. Depends on the situation, or depends on how hurt you are. Because I don't think it is, we shouldn't be judging whether this is worse than this, or it's not about that, because I think everybody perceives things differently, and everybody is able to, the level of resiliency is different for everybody. So that is one thing. And I think the aspect of what you talk about on you being very sensitive, that also is a different aspect to it, that not necessarily everybody have that. I don't, I have been learning through the years to develop that gift that we all have, right? But it's dormant for some reason. And but the fact that you were born and you were able to see at such a young age, and it is incredible, right? Do you think it's those gifts? Well, I think it's a gift, right? That you were able to see your fairies and angels so young, and remember that. There was any time in your life that you stopped that from happening because it was weird or it was different?
Yeah, definitely. Well, first, I just want to say that I think we are all born with, you know, our psychic gifts open. I believe that all children can see fairies and angels and all kinds of things. But because we're told, you know, that's our imaginary friend, or, you know, that we're being silly or being crazy, or also to coping mechanisms, we kind of like we shut that down, or we like put a veil in front of us so that we're not able to experience that. And I'm sorry, what was the first question?
No, and I agree with you. I agree with you because to keep going on that, it is, I like the fact that parents these days, they're becoming more aware. Mm-hmm. And, but it's definitely, it can be very challenging for parents if they don't know what they're dealing with, mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah, because when a child is saying that they're seeing angels, you're like, oh, really? I don't see them. Because we have the tendency that if we don't see it, it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, this is true. Yeah.
Yeah.
And our brain can process very, very little of what our eyes are seeing each moment. You know, like there's many more colors that are out there that are around us all the time. It's just that we can't process what that color is. You know, our spirit guides are with us all the time, and there's all types of beings that are around us. But if we aren't able to like look with our third eye or be open with our psychic abilities, it's a lot more difficult for us to know that it's there. But for some people, it's more of a feeling thing than it is a seeing thing.
Yeah, no, definitely. So what do you think, you know, when we talk about traumas, mm-hmm. and I think sexual trauma, it is something that unfortunately is really, really common. It is very unfortunate. And on the other side of things, more people are coming out in a way that they're sharing their stories. They have the intention to heal or to move forward in life because they notice that that experience, it's really been stopping them from moving forward in relationships and stuff like that. Because the most common behavior, it is having, so it is a challenge to be in relationships, okay? So what do you think it could be something that someone that is listening to us right now that have not been coming out or still struggle could be that one first step? Because I think that's the biggest thing. Once you're in, you're good. I think so, right? Mm-hmm. Because at least you're like, is that relief? Wow, I did it. I asked for help. Yeah. Or I decided to speak about what happened, right? So, but what do you think is that first step that it can help someone to start coming out of that that place?
Mm-hmm. That's a really good question. The biggest thing for me was addressing the shame that I felt, because I was so young when it was happening to me that I thought that I had done something wrong or that I was being punished and that I was bad. So I blamed myself. So it was really hard for me to begin to heal from that trauma and process what happened until I recognized that, like, you know, I was just a child, that I didn't do anything wrong. The adults that were supposed to be protecting me were hurting me. And there's no shame in being able to, you know, share that happened to you, that it happened to me, you know. Like I was afraid to tell people because I thought then they would think that I was bad or that I was wrong. Like even into my teenage years when I was only beginning to start to deal with that trauma, I didn't want people to think less of me or to like think that I was bad, because that shame was there, that it was just so deeply ingrained that, you know, it came out in all of my relationships. And you know, I allowed myself to be abused by men without realizing that it was abuse, because I thought that, you know, I was bad and that's just how I should be treated, because, you know, that's how it was when I was a child. So the biggest thing I would say is to recognize that you didn't do anything wrong. You know, everybody expresses themselves in different ways, and it doesn't really matter what age that you are at. If you went through some kind of a trauma, that wasn't your fault, you know. And it's unfortunate because in our culture, sometimes when women come out, the questions that will be asked was, well, was she drinking, or what was she wearing? And you know, I don't think that what a person is drinking or wearing should, you know, push them towards, or bring someone towards them to abuse them. It doesn't matter what age that person is. So recognizing that it's not your fault, and that it is actually super common. Like at least 1 in 3 women has been raped or molested or sexually abused. Like it is so common. And, you know, by reaching out for help, it allows you to start peeling back those layers of shame and guilt that has a negative influence on, you know, your self-esteem, your self-confidence, your ability to feel safe, the trust issues, you know, communication with your partner, with the people in your life. So know that you didn't do anything wrong, you know, and that there, as horrible as the trauma is, that there's going to be beautiful gifts of self-discovery to come through for you in that healing process.
Yeah. And what do you think will be the one thing that it could help them to start that healing process or the healing journey?
Mm-hmm. Well, again, recognizing that, you know, it wasn't their fault, and then starting to definitely reach out for help, you know, whether that means calling an anonymous phone, like a helpline or a hotline, talking to a doctor, talking to a friend, talking to a family member, just being able to like open up the box so that that repressed energy can start to come out. You know, some people really like to write about the traumas that have happened to them, because then at least it's getting out of the mind and out of the heart and onto paper and something physical. But just like I say, letting go of that shame is the first step, because with that shame, it keeps the energy repressed down. But definitely reaching out for help is going to be the best way to do it, you know, and allowing yourself to feel safe, you know. Like I never felt safe growing up, even when I was safe, because I just had so much trauma that was repressed that even in a safe environment, I couldn't feel safe. So finding safety in whatever that means for you, whatever that looks like, whether it's being surrounded by people that you care about, or through meditation, or, you know, grounding exercises, anything like that, just creating an environment where you feel safe so that you can start to kind of unpack that stuff inside.
What do you think is the most, like, I was sharing to you before we got on this call, and about, you know, this podcast that I was listening. So this, like it was Tim Ferriss, who actually, after 5 years working, he found out that he was sexually abused between the age of 2 and 4. But he didn't know anything. So what do you think could be one of the, because we are powerful, and we already said that earlier, right? So we're powerful beings, and we can use that in ways that we cannot even imagine. And one of them, with any traumatic experience, we have the tendency to block that. Whether we basically eliminate that from our memories, or I was meeting for coffee a friend of mine about a week ago, and she said that she has this in this room that is completely locked in her brain, and she basically makes the conscious decision when she wants to access that locked room and when not. So I see those two places, right? But when you create a room in your brain, then at that point, you already know what happened. So you still have a record of memories. Mm-hmm. But I think the challenge is when you don't have a record of any memory, but the behavior, it is the result of that experience, whether we remember or not. So what do you think will be some of those behaviors that it could tell somebody listening to this and say, wow, I can identify to that?
Well, for myself, I was overly sexual when I was young, because I just grew up with that happening to me, and I didn't know that it wasn't normal. So like, and I've seen this too in a lot of my clients who have, suffered from sexual abuse as a child, where they grow up being overly sexual and like confused on how to sexually express themselves, you know, in relationships, and even when, you know, going through puberty, learning about masturbation, all that type of stuff. There's it's kind of a common thread that people will either be overly sexual or not sexual at all, because they're afraid of what it's going to bring about because of their previous experiences. Another one is like either emotional repression or acting out emotionally, like being very reactive. And there'll be certain triggers. And again, it's going to be unique and individual for each person who's gone through the experience. But, you know, it might be aggressive men if the person was raped, or it might be, you know, having to do with the environment that the trauma happened in, you know, particular colors or structures or buildings or seasons or smells. All of those things can, you know, trigger that and bring that up. But for someone who is, you know, maybe if they don't remember what happened, but someone is knowing that there's something going on or there's something wrong that, you know, that is repressed, I would always recommend going to a healer, someone who can help deal with the energetic damage of what happened. So even if the person still can't remember that had happened, then they can at least have some of the trauma that's been done to the energetic structure and the aura healed. So that's helping in the healing process as well. Like in many of the healing modalities that I use, the person doesn't have to remember the trauma that happened. I can just clearly see in their energetic structure that there's trauma, and go in and repair that and remove the damage. So there's many different ways to address, you know, bringing that up or healing that and moving away from that.
Yeah. So there are a lot of modalities that you do that are, you know, I don't want to say that they're underground, but they're not really accepted for a lot of people. Because what I'm noticing is in the recent decades, we're always looking for science to tell us that something is true. If science it doesn't prove something, then it's not true. And I was even having a conversation yesterday with one of my good friends where I was saying that we're constantly looking for something logic, which is science in this case, that explains something. And we are blocking the fact that we have our heart is way more powerful than our brain, our instinct and our intuition. Yeah. And so this is something that definitely for many people, all the things that you do, because metaphysics is something that it is not, I don't think it's not out there. People are not talking about it like in the media, but everybody talks about vaccines or this or doctors or taking prescription drugs. And, you know, when they, like somebody have depression, for example, or anxiety, it is like, let's go to the doctor and have this prescription. So then when we say, let's go and see Crystal, because she has so many powers, like I call it like superpowers, right? And so yay. Yeah. So, you know, it's like what? Even myself, when I invite people to do stuff and they're like, wow, I don't know. Is that really gonna help? So how can you, you know, how can we start bringing that also more to the surface so people understand that there are so many other things, I believe, more powerful than what science can do. That's my personal belief. So how can we start bringing all that to light? Because we need more of that.
Okay, well, first of all, spirituality, or just to put it in more simple terms, energy, it's married to science. It is not separate. They're not two separate compartmentalized things. They are actually one and the same. So what I study is hermetics. Hermetics breaks down to three things. It's the study of astrology and astronomy and how, you know, the planetary movements affect us, even the full moon, and how that affects us. It's the study of ritual and theurgy, so how practices build energy, and you can use the power behind that energy, even just like going to the gym or brushing your teeth. There's energy and power behind that. And also the study of alchemy, which is changing something into nothing into something into something else. So that could be, you know, like a negative self-image into a positive self-image. It could be having no money to having lots of money. So hermetics is basically where the study of modern day science came from, like Albert Einstein and many of these great people that have made a ton of different inventions and have, you know, introduced all these concepts that we live our lives by. They were all, you know, hermeticists. They were all master hermeticists. They studied all the different aspects, the physical, the metaphysical, all of that. So it's very intertwined. Like, just because we don't per se believe in spirituality doesn't mean that we don't have spirit. Like, we have many different layers and levels to our body. You don't need to believe in spirituality to have an aura. Everybody has an aura. Everything has an aura. We are made of energy. Everything is vibrations and frequencies. So when we're having trauma happen to us, it stays in our energetic structure, and it might like start far away in being in, you know, a different part of the aura, and then coming into another part of the aura and still not being dealt with, still not being addressed, and the psychological layer still not addressed, and the emotional layer not addressed. And then it hits the physical, and it becomes a dis-ease of the body because trauma has happened in those other energetic parts of our body, which are much bigger than us. Like, our aura is 50 feet from one end to the other, like 25 feet around you in all ways. So there are so many things stored in our aura from that we're experiencing in our daily lives, things that we're picking up from other people, even walking down the street, or family members, or in traffic. And all of those things affect us, but in very subtle ways. So without awareness, we often might not notice that there's something going on. We just might not feel good, you know, but without addressing that we are holistic beings. And by holistic, I mean like WHOLE. We are whole beings. There are many, many parts to us, not just our physical body. So it's really important to recognize that that connection, that relationship between our physical body, our mental, emotional, spiritual bodies, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And recognize that it is actually connected with science. Like, there's so many scientific machines now that can actually read auras. And when a person dies, or, you know, when the body dies, it becomes 8 ounces lighter. That's the soul leaving. So, I mean, you can say that it's like hippy dippy or it's witchy stuff, but it's actually science, but it's also actually spiritual and an energetic process. Like, those things are not apart; they are together.
Yeah, no, and I'm glad that how you explaining it, because I always tell people that by the time it gets to our physical body, oh my God, we need to do more work.
Yes.
Because it means that now we need to go back, well, what I said backwards, because now we need to heal our mental health, then our spirit, our soul, all those different, but it's not, but at that point, by the time that it gets to our body, it's been some damage caused to all these different, you know, layers that we're talking about. And it is really interesting in so many ways on how powerful we are as human beings, and how much we underestimate our power. So what are the things, and one of the things that we talk about is how can we get back to our power? Because we're underestimating how powerful we are. And then when, you know, it's something that absolutely everyone have access to that. So, but the question sometimes is, how can I get to that, right? Especially if you have a trauma, right? You lost your power, and then you feel that, you know, like there's no way to get it back. But the reality is absolutely everybody have the power to get it back. So what are your thoughts?
Well, we live in a society that's very like single serving and very like rush, 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 gotta buy this, gotta do that. And so it distracts us away from doing our personal work. It distracts us away from looking at ourselves and seeing like, how are we feeling today? You know, maybe if we're feeling lonely or if we're feeling something coming up, instead of like going on a shopping spree or binge watching Netflix, we can actually create a sacred space for ourselves within ourselves by, you know, maybe doing a bit of meditation, maybe starting to look at, okay, what's coming up for me and what's behind this? And is this a pattern that's been going on throughout my life? Like, what am I actually feeling behind it? Instead of just, oh, I don't feel good, I want to do something else, and pushing it away and pushing it away and pushing it away. Like, true empowerment comes from being able to look at yourself as a holistic being, like I mentioned before, looking at all the different parts of us and realizing that every single person has trauma. And so it doesn't make a person bad or wrong or damaged to have trauma. But what the key is to look at that and embrace it as a part of yourself. You know, we all have shadow selves. We all have parts of ourselves that we don't like, or parts of ourselves that, you know, we maybe haven't forgiven for things that we've said and done in the past. And creating a relationship with those parts of yourself that, you know, you maybe been hiding from or running away from is where that true power, empowerment and true healing is going to come from. And what's really beautiful about that process is then you gain the tools to help the next person who's going through that. Because we live in a magnetic world, you will energetically attract people into your life who need the knowledge that you have to share. So recognizing, you know, we have soul contracts. There's things that our soul came here to do in this life. It doesn't mean that, you know, we didn't sign soul contracts to get sexually abused, but there's a lesson coming from that experience that our soul wanted to learn and share with others as we work through that.
And then, you know, something I was talking to my mom about recently is that for some reason, as human beings, we do not wake up until something dramatic happens in our life. Yeah. And again, dramatic, that it's different for everybody, right? Like it's not little or big. It is whatever. There's an event that happens, it created trauma, and then there are two paths to that. You whether really wake up or you continue being the victim. Mm-hmm. So those are the things. I'm in that case, I'm personally very black or white, because I think we always have a choice. Mm-hmm. And we all choose whether you want to be a victim, or you're like, you know what, I really have to do something for myself and learn what's the lesson out of this, especially when there are things that are really, really, when we're looking at shame, it is quite a low vibration to live with, right? Like shame, fear, those ones are very, very low. And what do you think are the things? Because now I talk about vibration, right? So, and that might be for people like, whoa, what are you talking about, right? It's not an emotion. Yes, it is an emotion and it has a vibration, right? Mm-hmm. And what are the things, the steps, like 3 steps, 5, 1, anything that is possible to help people to move from that low vibration, which is fear, it is shame. What are the other ones? I saw a list recently, I cannot remember.
Another one.
Oh, guilt, yes. And how can we move from that and start, because the ultimate goal, it is to move to love and joy and happiness. Those are the highest vibration emotions. So how can we get from one place to another? Because there's no one jumps, you know, that you go and then here we are, I'm happy now.
Yeah. Well, the biggest thing is being aware that you're in a comfort zone, even if it's not comfortable. It's a space that you know, or that the person knows, and then wanting something different from that. Like just by creating the desire to have something different and feel different and be outside of that is what will bring the opportunities. Like I went through some serious bouts of depression and anxiety and like wanting to kill myself, you know, because of many events that happened throughout my life and throughout my younger years. And the biggest thing for me was that I just didn't want to feel that way anymore, you know, and I'd sit in that space for quite a while until I had enough of it and just would desire something different. You know, I would desire to like actually begin living my life. I would desire to feel joy, to have energy and motivation and focus and clarity. And so by just having a desire to want to step outside of that comfort zone is where the growth happens, because we cannot grow in our comfort zones. We have to get out of our comfort zones to grow. And then once you take that step of just wanting something different, what's going to kind of come back or be reflected to you is, well, what is behind the emotion that you've been feeling, that person has been feeling? Why are you feeling shame? Why are you feeling guilt? Why are you feeling angry? And then just start to kind of look at that. And some people really have a hard time looking at themselves. You know, they're afraid of their shadow selves. They're afraid of their trauma. But I ask that you be brave and and even though you don't know what's on the other side of that, know that it's going to be better than the muck that you've been sitting in for however long, and in whatever way that looks like. Triggers are a big one, you know, like paying attention to the triggers, because certain things, like, you know, I'd be totally fine, no problems, going about my happy day, etc. And then there'd be some kind of a trigger, like maybe I'd see a man that looks similar to a man that abused me, and then all of a sudden I'd go into like PTSD, stress response, like, oh my god, I have anxiety, I have depression, and like I feel so shameful, and like, you know, I'm someone's gonna hurt me because I'm not a good person, and all those types of things start to come up. So when you're able to step outside of the comfort zone of being in the muck, by wanting something different, and having the strength and bravery to look at the triggers of what's going on, it's going to already start that healing process. Like our guides are here guiding us along the way with that journey.
Out of the things, because you're a teacher of the mystery school, okay? So what do you think is a good recommendation for people to start, you know, getting into that world, right? Because it's again, it is something different, you know, it's woo-woo for many people, you know, they don't understand. And even myself, there's so many things that I still don't understand. I just do it. I'm like, okay, I know it's doing something. And but what do you think it could be a good way to start in that path?
Well, the first thing I would recommend is cord cuttings, getting cord cuttings done, because we all have connections to, you know, experiences, trauma, and people from our past, and even in our present that we have negative connections with, and they're draining our energy. And the fact that we keep thinking about what happened and not processing it means that we're giving away our energy to that individual or to that circumstance. And when we have a trauma that happens, it creates damage in our energetic structure. Whatever emotion that we're feeling is going to start leaking out of our energetic structure. It's going to continue to attract people and situations that are going to make you feel that same way until those cords are cut and that damage has been healed. And this is like, cord cuttings and life activations are by far the healings that I do the most of, because they have immediate results and they are so beneficial for people. It can like immediately stop cycles, even addiction, or, you know, I've helped many people heal from major ailments, major accidents, leave abusive relationships, just overall be better with themselves because they're able to like keep their own energy in instead of having it be leaking out through the damage in the aura or the damage in the energetic structure. So cord cuttings are really important. Getting a life activation is also another really good one, because we use very, very little of our DNA and our brain power. And what the life activation does is it lights up some of our spiritual DNA as well as our galactic DNA. So we start having access to more of our brain power, to more, you know, more of our DNA is working. Our psychic abilities, our spiritual abilities, our intuition starts to light up. You know, puts us more in alignment with what our soul came here to do. It raises our energetic structure, raises the vibration of it, so we can like attract things that are more in alignment with that, instead of those old pains and cycles that you know, we've been living with in our lives. So those are really the healings that I offer. Many healing modalities, but those ones are the most common, because people come to me and say, like, I want to not be feeling how I'm feeling, or I want to not be continuing the same cycle, and I want to be something greater, and I want to, you know, be a better version of myself and be abundant and be happy.
Yeah. Wow. That is very, very powerful. So what is the example of, can you give us like a simple example of what cord cutting is, right? Because there might be, I know what it is, right? But I know there is many people that this is out of their comfort zone, okay?
Totally. Well, I put on a silly hat and dance around the fire. No, I'm kidding. I don't do that.
And then explain a little bit of what life activation is it? Yeah. And explain a little bit what is it, or how people can understand a little bit more about it.
Okay, well, when people come for a session with me, I always sit down and talk with them first. Like, I'm very laid back, easygoing, fun-loving. You know, I'm non-judgmental. Because I've gone through so much stuff in my life, it's very easy for me to hold space for other people. So if someone's going to come for a session, generally they'll come, we'll sit down, we'll have tea, we'll just kind of talk about what's some of the stuff that's been coming up for them that they don't want to have in their lives anymore. Because my life's purpose is to help other people find their life's purpose, which means removing the blockages that stand in the way. So cord cutting is about removing blockages, removing cords, removing patterns and cycles. So basically, when you come in for a session with me, we're going to sit and talk. Then we would go into my healing room and I would use a bit of sage, and I'm going to do some clearing exercises to help start clearing out the energy that is no longer needed in the aura and no longer needed in the energetic structure. I can't exactly say what I do because it's kind of private. You know, as a part of our training, we really need to honor the lineage, and what we do is very, very powerful work. But it's very much about cleanup work. It's about cleaning the aura. You know, I'm doing some chanting, I'm moving some things around in the energetic structure, bringing different things into balance, the magnetic lines, the energetic, you know, removing some of the damage, the broken energetic crystals, the magnetic lines, all those type of stuff. Yeah, getting that in order. And after we do the clearing work, we're always setting a new intention of what we want to bring in, because it's like emptying the cup of stuff that you don't need from the past. But then what are we going to do with that energy, like that space? What kind of energy are we going to bring in? How are we going to shift that? So we want to put this intention out there that what we're attracting is something new that's going to be benefiting us or be benefiting the client, and kind of help them work through that process so that when they leave, they feel that new energy coming in. And by, you know, with the law of attraction, like how you attract things is by feeling it. So when the person leaves here with their cup full of something that they desire in their lives, then it can easily flow in. Wow. The life activation works very much the same way, but it has more intricate details to it. The purpose of the life activation is really to put people into alignment with what their souls came here to do, like, period. But that means we got to remove and clear a lot of things that stand in that way. But there's a lot of information that comes through too by me looking at the energetic structure, or information that I might get from angels or guides that are there helping with the process to help a person move forward with the next steps in their lives.
Wow, that is really, really powerful. That for sure. Mm-hmm. You know, how many of us carry stuff that we don't longer need, right?
Every single person.
Yeah,
I do too. You know, just because I'm a healer doesn't mean that I'm, you know, high and mighty or above anyone else. Healers go through the most shit in their lives. Like, healers have the hardest lives. They really do, because we need to walk our talk. We need to go through that stuff on our own so that we can hold space and have the tools to help our clients. So out of everyone I know, I do the most personal work every day. I have stuff coming up every day. And like, now we're in Mars retrograde, so it's bringing up still a lot of guilt and shame and anger from the past, and things that I haven't forgiven myself or forgiven others for. And, you know, every day I'm just peeling back those layers. Maybe I have a cry about it. Maybe I, you know, do some journaling, or I do some healing and clearing rituals, or I do meditations, or I take a hot bath, or I go for a walk with my dog. And, you know, just shifting the energy is the biggest thing. Like, instead of just sitting in it and getting depressed and spiraling down, you know, it's about really recognizing this isn't where I want to be. I want to be feeling good, and then just doing whatever, you know, our body tells us it needs for movement to shift that energy.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's work. It is work. And I think the biggest thing, and what you and I always talk about, like, it is really, it's a lot of work. And sometimes what I tell people is, you know, what I said earlier, by the time it gets to your physical body, there's so much work to do. And but also there are many ways that we can start healing ourselves, right? No matter what, I always say, you know what, you can start by healing your body, but you're always gonna get to that point where you need to heal your soul. Like, you always have to go, you know, down that route.
Yeah, full circle.
We all have to if we want to keep moving forward. Mm-hmm. If, you know, as you said, if there is a desire of not being in that place anymore, well, then there has to be something. And there's so many ways that it definitely can be done. And of course, the ways that what you have been explaining to us today, it is powerful, and it's really you're gonna get quicker. You're gonna get you know, your issues resolve quicker. But I'm not saying that it's not going to be painful or anything like that, or it's going to be easy. It is as easy as it can be, but you know, sometimes that's what we need to do. We need to go, we need to face all that, you know, past situations that, you know, cause grief or shame or guilt in our life. Move away from that, but sometimes it means that we might have to face it, or maybe not, because there's, as you said, there are many tools available that people don't really need to go through that at all, which is good, right? Because sometimes we don't really need to know. And so what are the things? So let's talk last about connecting with the divine feminine.
I love that. So connecting with the divine feminine, that was a huge part of healing my sexual trauma from the past. It's really, okay, so every single person has divine feminine and divine masculine energy in them. Just it shows itself in the physical or mental, emotional, spiritual ways in different balances in different people. The feminine energy is very much about cultivating. It's about nourishing. It's about nurturing energy. It's the act of planting the seed. It's the act of having the hands in the dirt. The masculine energy is about growth and movement and inspiration and pushing things forward. So if you kind of look at the masculine and feminine energy in that way, you can notice what energy you're in and what you're doing. And what's unfortunate is that our culture, our society has really pushed us to mostly be in our masculine energy, especially as women, because, you know, in the way that the world views success, it's like that moving forward, that being an entrepreneur, that going and doing. But it's also really important that we sit and allow ourselves to just be and let our energy heal us and let other energy heal us and nurture us. And I spent most of my life being an entrepreneur, being a tomboy. Like, I've been on my own since I was 14. It was all about survival. It was, all my friends were older guys, and I just felt more comfortable with them in that kind of an energy. And then when I started to really notice, like, hey, I'm not in my divine feminine energy, I would see little parts of it come up here and there. And then I started asking myself why I wasn't comfortable with it. And it was because when I allowed myself to be in my divine feminine energy, I did not feel safe because of what happened when I was young. And like, even dancing and moving my hips felt very shameful for me, because usually when we have sexual trauma, it stores itself in our second chakra, which is the Hara chakra or sacral chakra. That's like where our reproductive organs are, digestion is, you know, our hips are there too. We store emotion, repressed emotion and repressed energy in our hips. So it can be very difficult for us to be able to move that part of our body, to feel comfortable with that part of our body, to just like freely express and move. But that's really what we need the most, is to open up and get energy into that space and be able to let that divine energy, that divine serpent move and carry the energy up and out instead of keeping it repressed in there. And being in the divine energy looks like the divine feminine and divine masculine looks different for each person. But what's really important is that we all find a way to bring that into balance for ourselves in our lives. The divine masculine energy is about holding space and protecting so that the women can nurture and grow. And together that energy moves forward, supporting each other. And that's really something that we want to cultivate more in our society and more in our culture. But women oftentimes don't feel safe in that energy. And I don't know if it's specifically because they've had sexual trauma that's been repressed, or because they've just learned that they will be more successful being in their masculine energy. But it's something to really look at. There's so many ways to get back into your divine feminine energy. And I mean, I loved doing it. You know, I loved exploring all these different ways to awaken myself in that way. Even if it's just like, I would have like nice romantic baths with myself, and I would like put on candles and music, and then I would like kind of dance a little bit and like watch the shadow and have it being like curving and flowing, as opposed to like straight masculine energy. And just noticing how that movement looks on the wall and watching the shadows of movement, you know, that would really help me to feel more comfortable in the divine feminine. Also, like just sitting and being and allowing, that is feminine energy.
Yeah.
Instead of pushing and rushing to get something else done, just sitting and being and allowing. That is really big. But dance is a big one too. Hula hooping, that's been another big one for me, because like I said, I didn't like dancing and moving my hips. Like I was very rigid, because to me it just felt like too sexual and shameful. But like it doesn't mean, like, it's not real at all. It's just that as a child I associated that, you know, that's where I stored that trauma. And so if I was moving it, then that those repressed emotions would start to come up again.
Yeah. No, definitely. I remember on one of my birthdays, on one of my parties, you mentioned it, that you didn't like the way how Latinos dance, because I remember, and look at you now, what you're saying. So I'm putting all the dots together here.
Yeah. Okay? Yeah, and I like the way they dance. I just don't liking that. I don't like moving that way, because it would bring up all that stuff for me, right? It's
crazy. It's crazy how, you know, how we would respond to things, right? Yeah. It is really, really interesting. And I like how you were explaining about the divine feminine, because in a different way, I interviewed Chris Kennedy. He is the author of the book Virgin Beauty and Beach. And we were talking about how we, and this has nothing to do with trauma. It is how society has been forcing us to be in our masculine. And then if we're not pushing, if you're not like always doing something, and it means that we're not competitive enough in the field, right?
Yeah.
And that's where basically is, and as you said, it has in some cases have nothing to do with trauma. It is just basically because I believe you said that earlier, we're a network, right? We're like a web, and then that's where we have been pulled towards to, right? Push, well, I think it's not pull, it's more like push towards that, right? Where it's like, if you are not that, if you're not driven, if you're not, you know, like determined, if you don't have that kind of, behavior or personality, we are not good in the marketplace when it comes to jobs, because we don't have that that eagerness to do things, and I think it is coming because I believe that nature always looks for balance. It's always gonna look for balance, whatever it takes 50 years, 100 or 1,000, but we always, you know, nature, and we're part of nature, of course. There is nature, it's part of the masculine and the feminine, the yin and the yang, right? Mm-hmm. And that's part of that flow, and as a result of that need, there are two things I'm noticing. One, it is I'm finding more men being more nurturing, mm-hmm. right? Because I think it's that need to balance. Because now women are more driven, more like, so men are more nurturing. And on the other side of things, I also hear more group of women getting together for self-care, self-love, you know, like getting back in your power and all those different things. So somehow that is coming out. So, and that's good. It is good because again, it's all about balance. We have been living with trauma or not in a very, very masculine world. Yeah. And things need to not, I wouldn't say shift completely, because we don't want to go 180 now, that it's completely feminine and nurturing, and because there's no balance in that. So what do you think what is your last advice to all of us, whether we have trauma or we're not in contact with our power, or we're not in touch with our feminine divine? What is the last piece of a tool or advice that you give us?
Okay, well, that's a big one, but I would say it would be to think about what your ideal life looks like. Mm-hmm. Think about when you wake up in the morning, how do you want to feel? What does the best version of yourself feel like and look like and do? And how does that best version talk? And where does that best version of you work? And You know, how much money do you make and how much spare time do you want? And without limitations, start to think about that and daydream about that and journal about that and start allowing that energy and inviting that energy to come into your life. You know, even if that means like, I want to overcome my traumas, instead of like thinking like, oh my God, how am I going to overcome all these things and things I can't even remember? Instead of thinking about that, think about how you're going to feel on the other side of that. What does healed you look like? How does healed you feel? What does healed you do in your spare time? You know, what will you do for self-care? And start focusing on what the results are going to feel like, instead of, you know, looking at this enormous, you know, trail full of pits and rocks and fire that, you know, might seem too treacherous to get through on your own. Think about what it's going to feel and look like on the other side of that, because then you're starting to invite that energy into your body. You're starting to invite that energy into your structure. Like, we have free will. And by using your free will, by using your willpower, your will center, your life force, your prana, you can create and attract anything you want into your life. And that's really the foundation of what standing in your power means, is deciding what you want and then directing your life force towards that. Yeah. That would be my last piece of advice. So do some thinking and journaling and get creative, you know, be a little crazy.
Yeah, totally. So where people can find you and do some magic with you.
Okay, well, you can check out my website, freshforlife.ca. You can find me on Facebook under Crystal Fresh or Crystal Rhodes, RHODES. You can also find me on Instagram at Crystal Fresh for Life. I do some Facebook Lives. I teach a lot of classes. Even with COVID, I've been doing, you know, obviously COVID safe regulations, but doing a lot of in-person classes. I do periodically, I do webinar series online and online meditations. And, but the biggest thing would be to just book get a hold of me and book a call, and we can just chat and kind of figure out what's going to be the best, you know, the best path for you to get where you want to go.
Yeah, perfect. Well, thank you very much for saying yes to this. And it is such an honor. And well, first of all, it's an honor to have you in my life, period. And sharing you now with the world, it is, you know, it is a gift. And so thank you everybody for listening and watching this interview. Please contact Crystal, and don't forget to follow me on Instagram and Facebook. You can find me under DMago Happy Naked on Facebook and Instagram, and also for all my fitness stuff is under Naked Fit, and you can go nakedfit.online as well /home, and you can find a lot of information there. So thank you very much for listening to us and letting us be part of this journey with you, and allow this shift. And the most important thing is make the decision, be uncomfortable, and the journey at the end of the tunnel, there is light. There is definitely light at the end of the tunnel. So we guarantee you this. We have been through the tunnel.
Yes. Yes, thank you so much for having me on the show. I really appreciate it. And, you know, from the bottom of my heart, I just really want to see everyone live their best lives possible and do what you came here to do, and live within that power. And, you know, even in your darkest days, remember that the only thing that will never, like the only thing that will, and that we can bank on is change is going to be there. You know, this will change, this will pass, however you're feeling. So just remember that the light is there.
Thank you.
Thank you.